So, should physicians be using a professional tax advisor or an accountant? What
If
what should they
you're
what should they look what should they look for in one of these?
if you're straight W-2, then I would say no. There's not enough complexity to justify using a professional. You're just going to be way cheaper. Just use TurboTax because there's no tax shelters, and you're just kind of doomed to paying a high tax rate. So might as well save money on the person that prepares the tax return. But when you start having significant 1099 revenue, you know, six figures or more, yes. When you're filing your tax return and you're taking a lot of business deductions, you want someone there looking at everything and saying, "Yep, looks good to me." That way, if you ever get any pushback from the IRS about anything, hey, I gave it to my professional, my registered CPA, and guess what the IRS is going to do when they look at a tax return and they see it's been prepared by a licensed CPA? Now, there's less scrutiny on something like that because hey, a professional's putting their license on the line, signing this return.
Right.
So there's some liability protection. It's also going to wind up saving you money. Good CPAs are not cheap. I see people all the time talking. I pay my CPA $400. I'm like, you're not getting your money's like you're just not getting your money's worth. You're not. You're paying someone $400. They're just filing a return. They're not looking at your return and thinking about tax strategy. They don't have the expertise to file an S corp return and understand the audit flags associated with different salary levels. And so you do need someone who's experienced. I would say if you're running an S corp, you would need to ask someone, your CPA, how many 1120 S's have you filed? How many of your corps have been audited? If they can't say bare minimum hundreds, preferably they filed thousands, then they're not going to have the expertise you want in someone who's filing a corporate tax return. If you're running a DB plan, you want a CPA who's familiar with DB plans. Most are not because they're kind of esoteric pension plans, right? Um, and you want someone who has enough expertise to be able to really understand business tax law to properly advise you. So I definitely would, but only when you start getting into like higher, 1099 revenue, it gets really helpful.
What do you see? I mean, what do you see as an average amount that you would have to pay a quote good CPA if it's not $400 for a setup like this? What do you think the range would be that would make sense?
In general, for a good quality experienced CPA to prepare a high earning professional's personal taxes, anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500, I think is a reasonable rate to pay. And that's for a high earning professional, right? There's extra liability when a CPA signs off on a tax return for a high earning person because if there's any audit or pushback, then well, there's extra liability involved
Right.
a lot of people don't realize. And then for a single member S corporation, which covers most physicians that are 1099, 1,200 dollars to maybe to $1,500 somewhere in that ballpark, similar to a personal tax return. So I would say anywhere from 2,000 to $3,500 if you're looking at filing a personal return and an 1120S. You're getting your yearly tax projections done, so you're being advised as to what to pay in estimated taxes, and then at year end, you're being advised to what to make additional tax payment to avoid penalties. That work is kind of included in those prices, and then routine advising throughout the year on
What if
basic tax
what
stuff.
about if you add a few real estate investments and some other different holding companies? You're looking at what, another 1,500, 2 grand perhaps?
Probably, if you're going to file, say maybe a partnership return, a 1065 with a couple partners for like a real estate property, anywhere from 750 to 1200 would be reasonable. If they're doing cost segregation studies or enhanced depreciation, it might be a little bit on the higher end of that. If it's pretty straightforward, just a single residential rental property or something, probably on the lower end of that. Yeah.
Right. So it sounds like most physicians who are trying to do uh, all of this and maybe a little bit of real estate also would probably be in the 3,500 to about 5 grand, which would be where they would probably be.
That'd be reasonable, and that's, at least those numbers are tax deductible,
Right.
so not actually costing you $3,500 to
Sure.
write it
Right.
off. But yeah, that would, I think, would be a reasonable price.
Right. 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 Which, I mean, honestly, with the amount of money you're able to defer into these plans is well worth it, quite frankly. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.